Cop frames a homeless man, gets him a 25-year sentence. That cop has now been caught. Let me do it this way. Let me put up the homeless man he framed, okay? Now, keep in mind, this is not the first time this cop has engaged in this kind of behavior. A Houston cop has been exposed again for falsifying testimony that sent that man, an innocent man, to jail for 25 years. Frederick Jeffrey, a previously unsheltered man, was falsely accused of being part of a drug operation. He was not, had nothing to do with it. Let me show you the cop who created a web of lies and fabricated evidence in order to get a conviction for the homeless man. Gerald Goins, Officer Gerald Goins, disgraced ex-Houston cop, framed Mr. Frederick Jeffrey. Let me give you background. Goins saw Jeffrey as an easy target. He looked at Mr. Jeffrey and said, well, this is a person I can exploit because of perceived status. Jeffrey served nearly 6 years of a 25-year sentence for possessing a controlled substance back in 2018. He was convicted solely based on the testimony of former Houston police officer Gerald Goins. The disgraced officer faces murder and organized crime charges in a years-long scheme involving fake drug buys. They knew he was dirty years ago. He had been caught being dirty. They allowed him to remain on the force until he started murdering people and engaging in actual organized crime. What did you expect, Houston PD? You allowed him to be a gangster, a criminal, while still getting a paycheck from the public. You knew exactly what kind of caliber of individual he was. You knew he lacked morality. You knew he lacked ethics, but you kind of liked that about him, didn't you? There's more. Because of the officer's dishonesty, flat out lies, and the faulty evidence, Jeffrey was arrested and convicted in 2018 for possessing 5 grams of methamphetamine. Despite the small amount, the judge sentenced him to 25 years in prison because of his prior convictions. Once again, another failure of the system. These variations of 3 strikes you're out. It's a human being, not baseball. But that variation of 3 strikes and you're out permeates again. So he gets convicted, not based on the actual crime or the charges, but based on history. This is how Goins did it, okay? The officer used a broken phone that he found in a house he busted as evidence to further connect the man to the crime. He said Jeffrey owned it, the unsheltered brother, he owned it. But his mother continued to scoff at his suggestion. Fred was homeless. He couldn't afford a piece of bubble gum, she said. Jeffrey maintained his innocence and advocated for himself by writing letters to the judge in the case. The judge finally responded to the request this year. Goins was actually charged for fabricating stories, specifically in a drug raid that killed 2 people. In 2019, the same cop, Goins, is charged with witness tampering, falsifying records, violating the rights of Rogina Nicholas and Dennis Tuttle, the couple killed in the January 28th raid on their home in South Houston. Here's what happened during that infamous situation. Goins, 54, was the officer who obtained the so-called no-knock warrant, which allows the police to enter a building without signaling their arrival or reason for being there. The DA, Kim Ogg, said Goins made numerous false statements in the affidavit presented to the judge who signed the warrant. Among those were allegedly false claims that a 2-week narcotics operation had just concluded at the home. A confidential informant had bought heroin from the address and the seller was armed with a handgun. So after the Harding Street raid, KHOU, the CBS station in Houston, examined 109 cases in which Officer Goins had obtained a drug search warrant since 2012. In 96 of those cases, Goins claimed a no-knock warrant was justified because knocking and announcing would be dangerous and futile. The same language he used in seeking no-knock warrants for the Harding Street house. In every one of those cases in which he claimed confidential informants observed guns inside, KHOU reported no weapons were ever recovered. Not one time. Not one time. Now, every time he applied for a warrant, because the judges don't get off on this either, because people talk inside of the local criminal justice system. He applied for these warrants, damn near 100 of them, and they never yielded a weapon. And y'all kept signing those damn warrants from this cop every time until he killed somebody or his actions led to the death of two people. There are additional accusations against this guy. He lies, he's been involved in corruption for many, many years. Let's put up the DA who's finally taking him down. This is the Harris County District Attorney, Ms. Kim Ogg. DA Ogg said Frederick Jeffrey's case is a due process disaster. In the wake of Harding Street, it is clear that Gerald Goins and other members of the Houston PD Narcotics Division engaged in a years-long scheme involving fictional drug buys, perjured warrants, and phony overtime. Individuals like Frederick Jeffrey were collateral damage. There are more victims, and there's also a network of cops that were down with it. The DA may not have the evidence to get to them, but she knows they are there. All right, Adrian, thoughts on this?
You know, this DA for stepping up and doing this is very courageous. Unfortunately, I don't think that she's going to be able to do everything that could and needs to be done in this situation because there are going to be limits. They use this individual, this particularly corrupt officer, to do all of their dirty work, but there is just a web of individuals involved in this because it does take a village to continue to effectuate these schemes. And you know that there are members of the judiciary who probably are in on it to some extent. Yeah. The problem is corruption is so embedded within our system. And of course, it's the most marginalized who end up suffering to the most significant degree. And I will push and push and push, but we need to have penalties for law enforcement officers who test a lie and who engage in all this corruption that are at a heightened level. If I can face a greater penalty and punishment for attacking an officer, then the officer should also be facing a heightened punishment for failing in their duties and completely engaging in this dereliction that is just absolute an abuse and exploitation of the law in their position of power.
Very well said.